Hello. So, gym. It's kind of popular these days, right? Hasn't always been popular. Let me hit you with a stat. Very recent history. I couldn't find the data for the UK, but in the US, in the year 2000, you had about 32 million members of gyms. Year 2017, we're up to over 60 million. So by now, that's probably 65. So that's more than doubled in less than 20 years, right? That's crazy. That's a lot. So why has that happened? Now, sorry ladies, I'm going to be predominantly focusing here on why are men so interested in the gym. You know, I went to the gym on lunch break today, it was like 80% male. This is a pure gym, it's a mainstream gym. Why? What's going on there? So, we got some stuff that won't be controversial, we've got some stuff that people maybe don't like talking about so much, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, firstly, the obvious stuff. Physical activity's been engineered out of our lifestyle. So, this is well known with regards to obesity. If you go back 100, 150 years, most people were farmers. You go back further than that, almost everybody was having to either hunt and gather or farm to get their food. Now it's been engineered out. We don't need to do almost any physical activity, but you know, we're built to be physically active. So the outlet for that nowadays is do some sports, go to the gym. Fair enough. Okay, this is one reason. And it's, you know, hard labor has become less and less and less. And so we can see that over time, there's more and more and more need to have some sort of almost artificial outlet for physical activity. So there's that. Secondly, there's culture. Now, it's well known and been well publicized for many years about female body image and the influence that the images that you see having, it's usually spun as a negative effect, and often it is. Especially you look back 10, 20 years ago when there was a lot of very slender catwalk models around and this kind of thing. And obviously we have incidences of anorexia, bulimia and other eating disorders, and you know, we can join the dots, and there's definitely something to that, of course. But the male side of things doesn't get much attention. This was something I actually did a master's thesis on a couple of years ago. So if we look at males, is there idealized male bodies? Now, yes, and there's more and more. Let's look at an example that we'll all know. Yeah, let's take James Bond. There he is. There's James Bond in the 60s. All right, he's, you know, regular looking guy. And then the famous picture of Daniel Craig there, 2005, that is. That's a while ago now. So there's about 35, 40 years difference between these. You see the difference, quite marked. That's not an isolated case. I'll show you another example. We're looking at action figures. This is quite a well cited piece of research. This is G.I. Joe action dolls going through from the 60s, 80s through to the 90s. And you see the change in physique there as well. Marked. I give you one more example, which is from sort of a niche area, but bodybuilding, which is obviously the archetype of an idealized male physique. Now, it's certainly got to almost ridiculous proportions these days. Whether that has an influence on culture has an influence on that, almost certainly a bit of both. But if we take a look at Mr. Olympia, the best bodybuilder in the world from the late 70s, Frank Zane, there he is, versus the 2000s, Ronnie Coleman, unbelievable difference. This guy is probably about 14 stone, this guy's about 20 stone, right? So, this has an effect, it does. You're being bombarded with this stuff all the time. Now, certainly in the last, 5 years, going back a little bit more to a lesser extent, something like Instagram, the amount of idealized body images you see is just astronomical, and the size. You know, training methods, nutrition got better. Drugs are involved, you know, they're much more easily available to help with physiques like that. But idealized male body images are being bombarded, and men are thinking, shit, this is what I need to aspire to be, right? Now, let's go on to the stuff that's maybe people don't like so much, right? So everyone's cool with society affecting our behavior. People don't like so much to talk about some of the more innate stuff, right? But hey, there's a lot of science to say that there is a lot of built-in stuff. So if we look at evolutionary psychology, we look at sexual selection, which is just as important as natural selection in evolution. because it's only those who get to procreate whose genes get to go to the next generation, right? So if no one's sleeping with you, your genes aren't going through to the next generation. And we see this across various species. Well, if we look in terms of humans, we look cross-culturally about what's desirable. There are certain commonalities. Taller men, broader shoulders, good shoulder to waist ratio, athletic, tends to be desirable, right? Now, this is not to say that consciously it's like, I want to be desirable to women, going to go to the gym. All right? That happens, but it's just a subconscious. It's generally deemed other men admire it. You know, there's evidence of it helping to increase, income and that kind of thing. And we've just got there's an inbuilt more of a competitive drive, a drive for social dominance that can be, the outlet could be through physical dominance. There's certain things that, especially when you match that with the world we live in now, where there's not that many outlets for that, which is largely a good thing. Hey, I mean, there's a famous book by psychologist Steven Pinker, The Better Angels of Our Nature. He talks about how violence has been, all but eradicated, almost as much as it can be. The rates of violence are just over history. And that's great. That's really good. That's really good. But the drive for competition, for dominance, for physical exertion, that's still there. So we need an outlet for that. And one way that that's coming through, it appears nowadays, is the gym. I mean, how many guys do you know that don't either play a sport or go to the gym or are not into like video games, which seems to be one way in which people are able to express this sort of competition and whilst it's not actual physical exertion, it's sort of through a character, isn't it? So there's a few things to think about for you there. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that's been interesting. Anything you agree with or disagree with, feel free to write me a comment. And I'll see you soon with hopefully some more interesting content.